this afternoon, we have with us architect Bhesania, who's a senior director for architecture at Talati Partners.
Thank you, FOAID, for having me over here. And when we were discussing with Shraddha as well as to what should be the topic of discussion, we thought that it would be wise to impart some little wisdom that we've gained over the past couple of decades, me and my panelists. So I'd like to call MuseLAB. So MuseLAB is a design studio that is reshaping how architecture, interiors, furniture, and products are experienced. Pritika Manjrekar from MoCo Design. It's Shilpa Shinde. She's a seasoned real estate professional, my dear friend, Mahyar Vaid. Right. So I'm going to start off with the Muse boys here, or as they told me, most of their clients call them, instead of MuseLAB. So having said that, either one of you, and of course, yes, yours is a partnership firm, right? So who's the boss? I can start off with the boss. Anyone?
I mean, it actually
depends on the day.
So the thing is that in the morning, I'm extremely, even though I wake up at 5 in the morning every day, I'm very cranky. I don't know why, but it's just, so I'm the boss in the morning till like around 10, 11 till I calm down. Then after that, he takes over.
All right, so Jasem, I think we'll start with you.
Sure.
So why MuseLAB?
So I think when we were trying to put a name together for the firm, we were sure that we didn't want a name-based firm, in the sense namesake-based firm, like Jasem, Pirani or Huzefa, Rangwala Associates or any of that. We didn't want that.
They would have not been able to pronounce our names.
Yeah. So not like they're able to pronounce MuseLAB. But the thing is that I also had a blog at that time. It was called A Musing Elephant. The blog's not active anymore, so please don't go searching. So that was somewhere there at the back of our mind. But we also thought that with every project, always when it starts, there's a story. And there is some muse, right? Whether it's an object, an idea, a thought, something that you see when you travel. So there is some story related to that. And therefore, we thought that whatever we decide had to have the word muse within it. So there were many ideas. There were silly ideas like Muse Kitchen, but then we thought we'll be taken for like a catering company. So yeah, then we ended up with MuseLAB.
Okay, so then when you start off your own firm, how important is this name? So then I would like Pritika to also answer that. Why MoCo? What's the story behind MoCo Design? And why did you also choose to not give your own name to your firm name?
So similar reason. I chose not to call it Pritika and Associates because, wanted to create something that'll be bigger than me. So someday there'll be a lot more ownership and it'll go on, whether I'm there or not. The dream is to create something that'll keep going, keep growing. MoCo Design Studio because it's Mo and Co. Mo stands for modern, Co stands for contemporary. Modern is my design philosophy, ahead of its times, always kind of trying to think ahead of its times. And contemporary keeps it contextual.
So if you come across a client who would like to do a classical villa, you'll just pass it over?
It's still, no, I think modern is what keeps it ahead of its time. So it's modern way of thinking, but I will do it.
So you actually came up with this name because you wanted to make the firm larger than you. That's the explanation, right? Jasem, you should have used that line. Maybe for the next interview.
For the next one.
Yes. All right. Now tell me, Shilpa, on the other hand, you represent the developer fraternity. Like how Mahyar and I would majorly call it, bread and butter for us. So what made you realize as a young architect that, hey, listen, I don't want to really pursue doing the designing at the front end and then take this conscious decision? Because why I say conscious decision? Because obviously you've stuck around with it more than a couple of decades. So why that decision?
So on the onset, like everybody else, when we study design, you want to do fabulous structures and all of it. So we joined the firm. Even I joined a firm. I had joined one of the bigger firms.
and I also worked with a couple of smaller firms. But what I realized was that the kind of work what was coming towards me as a young architect was quite mundane, you know. It was not enough to get me anchored into it, and I didn't find the process interesting at that part. Probably it's a matter of the situation at that time which I faced. And so early on I had this a curiosity ki, I need to see how the buildings around me are done. I need to get connected to reality, not just the aesthetic parts of it. I need to understand how the mechanics work, how things are approved as well. So from there I started and I joined another smaller firm which was actually a developer cum architecture firm. They were doing all of it in-house in the sense of conceiving the project and getting the approval for it, which was, for me, it was a point of curiosity how it happens. Also, it gave me an opportunity to work directly on the planning, whereas in the bigger firms, I was doing more of, the side pieces, probably you would say, supporting others. So here I could design directly. And I think that was interesting and more engaging as a young professional to talk day in and day out with the proprietor who was working for the real estate firm and then gain my understanding from there. And what made me consciously shift into this whole paradigm is that the scale of the projects are really huge. When you are doing real estate, the buildings and the layouts, I did some initial works with Ajmera developers, so there was a whole layout. Then I moved on to Oberoi, and I could do, big buildings which were actually difficult for young architects to, this work didn't come their way. So there I kind of understood how it all works. I understood how the approval, how the mechanics, how the numbers work. And I gained, insight into these aspects which are not normally, awareness is not there around these things when you're just in an architectural firm. And I think I just grew on me. And maybe it was not a conscious, much of a conscious decision, but like you said, once you spend a continuous amount of time in a certain direction, probably then it becomes like a default at some point, that's all.
Okay. I would have preferred a more honest answer. At a young age, you could have just said, a developer paid me better.
No, that is definitely not the case.
Because this is something that we face day in, day out. There are...
No, but you have to understand, this is like 20 years back.
True. Okay. We'll take your word for it. And because this is what we are facing today. So in today's context, when we have young architects, designers come to our firm, and for a mere 5,000, 6,000 rupees, which of course is good enough sum for them, there's no doubt, they change their path, career path. It's just for that additional extra money, and they join a developer, even if they don't want to. See, there is one thing where an architect would like to do it for your reasons. There is another reason where it could just be financial. What would be your advice for young architects who are wanting money and they know for a fact that a developer firm is going to pay them more?
Right. So interestingly, when currently also I take in architects, my fundamental advice to my HR team, and also while I choose the people to join the team, is that I need a candidate who has done at least 5 to 6 years in the firm. Basic. Because that person needs to be a little ready to ask the questions from the other side of the table. So my fundamental advice to the younger generation is there. Further, when you talk about money and pay scales, I hear you, what you're saying is definitely the case, but a surprising take I got for this, because I was talking with my junior just before coming here, and I asked him, this guy I had taken last year in my team.
Not from TPA?
Nope.
Ah, okay.
And, it was surprising to hear his take. I said, would you like to, what is your reason that you came? Of course, we all know money is a part of the thing. But what I heard from him is that currently, the industry is doing pretty good. Everybody is having lots of work. and there is a dearth of architects in each and every, may it be a firm, may it be a real estate. Everybody's striving to get the talent. So right now, at this point, the pay scales are not much different, for the younger generation. For the younger generation, I'll add that. So, yeah, of course.
Mahyar had a cheeky smile, so...
No, so... No, and this is not my take. This was his, because he said, the year-on-year increments, and this is his version, that the firms offer are quite different than what developers offer. And it was insightful for me because I didn't expect that candid response to the point. So it's like if the firm offers me a 50 to 20% hike at times, the developers would offer me a 7 to 12% or 14% max. And that's fact.
Okay.
Unless you stand to lose somebody and you desperately want to cling on, then sky's the limit.
Okay, all right. So, Mahyar, now you've been with TPA for more than 15 years, right? Technically born and brought up, well, a little bit, almost. And obviously you've done pretty well for yourself. You are now commanding, as a senior director, you're at the highest post that TPA or a large firm has to offer. And of course you're talented, nevertheless. So why would you, I can say that in this forum. So why did you not, or did you in the past ever think that, okay, if I work hard, I mean, we all work hard, right? Why don't I work as hard as for my own firm? Why would you not do that? Or did you not do that?
So when I started off, Carl, the idea was that I always wanted to do large-scale projects, which is something, like she mentioned, is not easy to come by when you're starting off on your own. And with that thought process in mind, obviously, I wanted to experience the entire gamut of architecture, which was possible to do only when you join a large firm. That said, once I joined the firm and once I started growing, I realized that as I move into senior posts, I was almost ending up handling an entire studio by myself and running a small practice of my own. Of course, not having to pay salaries was a bonus, but but at the end of the...
That's the biggest pinch, right?
Pinch.
Sorry to cut you there. How do you all feel at the end of every month when you all need to pay salaries?
Very poor.
I guess that's when he gets more crankier.
So at the end of the day, you realize that you're practically running your own studio, your own firm within a larger organization. But the benefits, for me at least, outweighed the cons, right? Because in a larger firm, there's a lot more structure. There's a lot more experience that you can learn from. So with 10 years working in a firm, you get to learn from your seniors, and then what you could have learned on your own probably in 10 years, I could learn in 3 years or 4 years. That can only come when you have multiple things coming to you at a time. Also, it's like being a kid in a candy store, right? Because you have everything at your disposal. You have softwares, you have 3D printers, you have a 3D team, you can explore a lot more. You're not a one-man army trying to do everything in your own firm. You have a lot of support system. You have libraries, you have material libraries, you have vendors coming to your office instead of you having to go for, So there are lots of pros and, I mean, from my point of view, there were so many pros that then I never thought of, okay, I should leave and start my own practice, if that makes sense.
Of course. And of course, when you are in a larger firm, as you rightly said, I mean, even when we have our peer discussions, and there are so many different types of projects that we deal with. And during certain projects, some maybe you are doing, some maybe I'm doing, where we also feel with so much of experience, there's a learning curve to it. But that's when I think the camaraderie that a larger firm associates probably share, which luckily we do, that helps. But yeah.
No, it largely helps because what happens is architecture is such a field that it takes 2 or 3 years for a project to materialize. So it is a little difficult for a single person to get a plethora of experience in a short span of time. The only way to do it is when you share information with others. And I mean, I'm always I'm always saying that we should share information even beyond our offices. But at the end of the day, having that information in your office does help.
Great. So coming back to the MuseLAB boys, that name is going to stick now, right? You get that? Right. So, when you all started off, again, for the guys who are really itching to start on their own, uh, were there any obstacles or you just stumbled upon one great project after the other?
No, it was not a fairy tale start. I mean, there were tons of obstacles. So both Jasem and I, we are first generation architects. There is no one in our families who are remotely close to the construction industry. And I think yeah, we were really, really nervous to sort of take that plunge. But I think 2012 is when we decided to start our practice. And interestingly, before we started our practice, we were both working with our firms and we were always working on high-rise projects. I mean, he worked on airport projects for most of his career. And the first project that we worked on, you know, when we started MuseLAB, not MuseLAB, was a half-done 2.5-bedroom apartment in Bombay. So while it was obviously like a complete shift in scale, but I think it was interesting because in some way it allowed us to think inside out, because we were constantly thinking at larger scales, you know, larger details, and we were never really looking at ergonomics, you know, I mean, simple things. I guess today that starting point of that 2.5-bedroom home is now allowing us to also do high-rises in Bombay, where we understand what it takes to design an apartment unit from inside out and make it a lot more efficient. But yeah, it wasn't simple. That entire year, I know that, and I would not ask you to do pitches, but yes, we pitched for around, I think, a good 20-odd projects to families and friends. Of course, sabko discount mil gaya, we didn't get any money, and you know, it was a struggle, but yeah.
We even went knocking on developers' doors.
We did, yes.
Not one person called us back.
One sec.
Including
Hello.
her.
Listen. Guys, before you all start knocking on her door, there's a reason why she's on my panel. She's my future client.
Hello,
So,
I'm already sending him an application. With
Sure.
everything that he just said, like, I'm now really reconsidering this.
all right. And so what about you, Pritika? Was it an easy journey for you?
It has been an incredible journey because I did have an anchor client ready when I started. My father's in the real estate industry, he's a builder.
Correct.
Although I decided not to join him, that was a very conscious decision to start on my own to do an architecture firm because I didn't want to do only builder projects. I think that was a very important part of it. The other important part was I'm stubborn. I wanted to do something on my own. I wanted to experience, make my own mistakes, you know, start from scratch. But no, I had a 2 lakh square feet project to begin when I first started MoCo Design
So
Studio.
yours was a fairy tale.
It was a fairy tale, but my father's a businessman, so he told me, you get your first project, baby. You get your first project. If you don't do well on this one, you come sit on this side of the table, is what he told me. And we'll hire architects and you will lead it. And so I was given that one project. And then there's been no turning back. So yes, it was a fairy tale start, but I had to really, really prove myself.
Of course, yeah. So your dad is a renowned developer, of course, we know that in Pune.
Yeah.
How difficult was it to actually, I mean, not get tempted, you know, like, main to papa ki pari. So how was it to not get tagged like that and then, yeah, people do say that.
But that's what motivates you, right? Then you want
Yeah.
to prove yourself.
Correct.
So that's when you go out there and you really start taking on different projects. So then I went into the whole institutional vertical because you want to, as a young girl, you want to prove that you're doing this because it's coming to you. People don't know what happens inside an office. So that's really something that really pushed me. We went out there, we got really, really good work. One work led to another.
I'm sure you have a plethora of clients now, but
Yes.
do you still do projects for your
Yes.
dad as well?
Yes.
Do you charge him properly?
Yes.
Okay. Double?
No.
Okay. I thought
No.
I'll just ask.
Less than others.
All right. Thank you. Right. So now, Abhayan, coming back to the developer forum, do you miss or do you still get to design? Because see, again, architects, you know what they say, they have that itch to design, to create, you know, we want our stamp on this structure. That's what it's all about. That's what majority of them think. Do you get to design in a developer firm or are you the one who follows up? How does it go about? If you could just throw that light on the younger audience.
Right. So you have pinched a nerve over there, to some extent it happens because there are rules to the game, and the rules to the game are the numbers and the margins first. So you have to understand what is the target that is given to you as a team collectively, because it can be a deadline, a launch timeline. It starts with a margin. It's a business plan. You have to be you're privy to the information of the business plan. You need to know what are the weaknesses, what are the struggles, what are happening. So at times, everything else might take a little backseat, and you have to focus on delivering the numbers. So having said that, we don't really, and I would say it for all my peers who are working in the developer firm, that 85% of this peer group would largely be into the designing. It would be like a co-work with the consultant whom we are engaging. So the synergies should match, our temperament should match, because otherwise it can just become a little ugly, because you would be driving towards something for your company and the other person might be having a little ego trip on what his design was like. So it always will be to some extent a co-creation of what the product would be in terms of a real estate. And when you are picking your consultants as well, you are trying to see what new can be done, what is the style that the person is having. So some sense of design and, aesthetics always is, into that decision making and all of it. We do design smaller aspects of it, like maybe a sample flats, though we do all in-house largely. The pavilions for the sample flats and all of it for the launch collaterals, all that is done. Try to do it in-house. At times we take a consultant and we work towards him, but that kind of fills up the little crevices of wanting to do the design. And of course, whenever we are designing with the consultant, there is a healthy exchange of what can be better, what as a flavor from USP point of view, from all those things. So those things happen, but in isolation, probably the chances of designing an entire development would be very limited.
So do you miss it?
We do miss it at times. We do miss it at times because it's like this. You are inside a space where you are having 100% of the information what is needed for the margins and everything. So आपको बहुत ज़्यादा पता है, and that is your responsibility to deliver. My rating, the corporate system, my rating, my numbers, everything depends on what I am delivering for the company. So having said that, sometimes you feel थोड़ा और करना चाहिए, इसमें और ये elevation नहीं काम कर रहा है, इसमें और होना चाहिए. But then somewhere there is a ticker, there is a timeline.
Where do you draw the line between politely telling the client, the architect, that ये elevation समझ में नहीं आ रहा है, or it's an outright ego battle?
I'm sure the architects give us a bunch of choicest words behind our backs. I'm sure of that. But then it's not like too difficult because they understand. That's why, the previous discussion we had on the phone, sometimes it's about
Which
synergies.
was not to be brought up now, but sure.
Sometimes it's about synergies and how much, the people understand each other. I think there's nothing really ugly into that. Okay. It's all business.
So on the topic of design itself, now, Pritika, obviously we know that when you design, you would be having, say, some associates and so on. But it's still like a one-woman army in more ways than one. However, when it comes to larger firms, Mahyar, or when it comes to a partnership firm, I would like to talk about that. Freedom to design what you want when you are representing a larger firm. How does that work?
I think, Carl, freedom to design is always there, but when you're working for a larger firm, you have to, deliver your bottom line. So there is a standard which the office has set, which the founder of the firm has set, because of which the firm has grown to this level. So you always have that at the back of your mind that, whatever your design, at the end of the day, you cannot compromise on the quality of the design or the functionality of the planning or any of the standards which the office has set in the past. Yes, there's always improvement as new materials come in, as new technologies come in. We are constantly developing newer set of ideas and newer set of designs, but without any compromise on the, base standards which have been set in the office.
Okay, but then would you sometimes want to think something totally different and then you would feel, I want to do that. But perhaps the firm might think otherwise as a larger picture.
Well, not really, because as I said, the design language is something which is ever evolving. We have seen it in the past. No one language of design has ever, been existent forever. People have explored different design language. People in the same generation and age also prefer to have different design aesthetics. However, if you're maintaining your standards, I think you're free to explore whatever direction you want to take. I have never felt that being a setback in terms of your creative flow.
Correct. Perfect. Great. So coming to you guys, about the management part. Now, because many of the younger lot would think about, should I start on my own, or can I fall back on a friend, and I would like to start my firm with a friend, and that's how it goes about. So when it comes to a partnership firm and freedom to design, again, I'm not getting into the fact that who's the boss here in this case, but I'm sure there must be certain times where you all must have thrown stuff at each other. If not, I hope there's some juicy story there as well for my next segment. Correct. So yeah, so can you just throw light upon that as well, about freedom of design in a partnership firm, of course?
Yeah. So, of course, I mean, it wasn't on, it took some time, right? Because when we started working, we've always been friends, but we had never worked together. We never went to the same college. So we don't know what each one is like as a student at that point, or seen each other's projects, or seen each other in the same college studio. So of course, initially first couple projects, it took a little figuring out. So I don't know if I have thrown anything, but it definitely leads to a lot of silences for a bit.
Didn't you get those stitches during your first project?
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah, possibly, sure.
So the thing is that it took a bit of figuring out, but I think now, after of course so many years, I think we know what each one's strength and weakness is. And I think that's where one steps up, where the other one has to step back. And it's always about the idea. It is, I wouldn't say it's easy to kind of keep your ego, sort of out of it. But I think you have to look back and realize that it is all in the interest of the project and the firm, and therefore not Jasem's firm or Huzefa's firm. And therefore, the ideas that come forward, this freedom to design then kind of trickles down through the team as well. In the sense, it's not that our word is, like God's word to at least start with, because then you want people to, then of course when there are deadlines, you have to take a call.
So, but then when a client comes in a partnership firm, do you decide, okay, I'm going to take this one, or maybe I'm feeling the vibrations, I will go ahead with this? How do you all decide in a partnership firm who takes on the project? Or do you all work on all projects together?
Yeah, so, we of course have a lot of friends who are partners also working in partnership firms, and we know that a lot of them work on individual projects themselves. And I think in the past we've given that some thought, but we've realized that that doesn't work for us. So till the stage 2 for us, which is the design concept itself, where we are presenting the entire 3D views and the overall idea. I think so. Planning and design is something that we do it together, and then one of us takes charge of the project through construction documentation, BOQs, and the actual site work. So then one of us will then liaise with the client, but that really helps, because then the other one is always policing the project, right? Because if I'm constantly going on site, then he will make a surprise visit, and sometimes even outside of my knowledge, right? And then he'll be like, what is this, kind of thing. I mean, this. So yeah, it happens. But I think that works really well for us, because I think like he said, that designing together was the genesis of this practice, and it was not about, otherwise we would have just started on our own.
The idea is that, right, as a partnership from, otherwise I would have my own practice outside, and it's to benefit from that.
I mean, honestly, this is the first time that I'm actually hearing that two partners of a design firm are actually doing the designing together, even at this stage, at this level. So, I mean, hats off to you guys for pulling it off. So, Pritika, for you, didn't you ever feel in this journey of doing as a proprietor that you are, that I wish I had a partner to fall back on, or to remove my frustration on, or something, or anything?
It was a really interesting story. I actually think today I'm ready for that. So it's taken me the number of years that it has to even develop that level of, so it's different. When you work with your team, there's a lot of freedom. You want everyone, you don't want to be in an echo chamber, you want everyone to have their opinions. But at the end of the day, you're still taking that last call, but you're also accountable and responsible for that last call that you're taking. Today we have opened up to a lot of collaborations. There's a lot of collaborations that we're doing, but I do think that required a lot of maturity also. So I think partnerships are not easy. They do require that level of security and understanding what you want to bring to the table, and then you open it up. So in fact, it's only the last 2-3 years we've opened up to collaborations, and we'll see where it leads us.
And you're okay to now, your mind is sort of conditioned to perhaps even have a partner on the firm? What's your email ID?
So,
I mean, you can give it out there. I'm happy where I am.
I think collaborations, I am opening up to some really interesting ideas. But yes, starting to really appreciate what it would look like if an equal comes in. Yeah.
The way you pounced on that mic, I know you have something juicy to say.
I wanted to add. You know, the thing is that basically with Jasem and me, the reason it was also very difficult when we started our practice, because we've been best friends for that many years. And a lot of times when we started our practice, like our parents would be like, you know, why do you want to work with your best friend? Because there is always that sort of challenge. And I think that has also been a struggle, right? Because at the end, we are also friends. Like, I don't think we've been able to take a vacation together as friends with our other friends for a very long time. So it's like one person's always kind of manning the fort in that sense. I think that kind of comes as a challenge when, you know, you're in a partnership firm with your best friend as well. It has its perks also. Yeah.
Fine. And about the management part of it as well, right? I mean, as Mahyar rightly said earlier, the biggest pinch that you would feel is when you have to give off salaries, right, at the end of the day. I mean, when it comes to a developer, you know at the end of the month you're going to get that paycheck. Even for a larger firm, for that matter, I mean, let's call a spade a spade. We are happy that at the end of the day, we are not responsible for paying our team, but the firm is. As long as, of course, we do the right amount of billing for them when it comes to us. But how does it feel? Because there are many times I've seen the biggest issue that my friends from the fraternity have, who have their own firms, partnership, proprietary, whatever, is the month-end deadline. Because obviously no one wants to delay payments for their team if they're working hard. So how do you mitigate that? Or you're just going to out say that no worries, we are absolutely cash rich, we have no stress at all.
No, I love it. It's very stressful. I personally really love it. It drives me.
Okay, so Jasem has something to say from his body language with that.
I think I'm a little calm about it, but my person to my right is not. So, yeah, I mean, I think, like she rightly said, that stress keeps you on your toes, which is also exciting in a way. You have to make sure that if it's not coming from here, it has to come from somewhere. So you're making sure that it pushes you to meet the deadlines also. And I think you just have to plan, and luckily, I wouldn't say the words wouldn't be cash rich, but the idea would be that at least so far we've never had to be in that situation that we're so worried that what's going to happen next month.
So who out of the two stresses more?
Me.
You? Yeah. That's not possible. Seeing the amount of hair on your head,
Because
I very much doubt that you are
here.
the one who takes all the stress. So save it.
No, I'm definitely the one who's more anxious. But I'm also like, it kind of comes and goes, right? The anxiety just like sort of just evaporates very quickly. But I think what we decided was around a couple of years back is that we need to at least safeguard our practice so that even if there are no projects coming in for the next 3 years, we are okay. I don't know if we can sustain a practice like that, but I think that is the idea.
Now, so I just want to add. So if you're starting your own practice, initially you don't really withdraw salary. It all goes back to build this security for the future.
That's true. Yeah, we didn't take salaries for 5 years.
I think Mahyar is also getting that idea. Maybe next 5 years, Mahyar, next couple of years.
I think that's a good thing because we get stressed about the company putting pressure on us for doing the billing. Yeah. So
see, that's a good school of thought because today, even when you work in a larger firm, and of course, as Mahyar said, you have a lot of perks of the infrastructure that comes along with it. There is always that stress, not stress, but that pressure that you need to perform as a leader as well, and to do your billing for your clients. So of course the management is going to ask at the end of the month, billing ho raha hai, because in our office or in any other office, every seat comes with a cost, right? And then there's a back calculation that you need to do, right? So tell me one thing about that, because since every seat comes with a cost, when you started off, you all were just tempted, or even today, sometimes, I mean, I see a lot of fire in your belly to do, projects, do good work. Are you tempted to just take on anything that comes your way, be it architecture, interiors, furniture, as you do all of it, right? So do you get tempted still that, or if yes, why? If not, why?
I think, no. I mean, there was a time, yes, that we sometimes took on projects that maybe we shouldn't have, but for the very reason that you have salaries to pay. And so some of those projects we did take on, but I think we are being a little choicist in some way now, where we're able to choose and decide. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think even back then when we took projects, because we had to make ends meet in some way, we made sure that the project is designed in a way where we're going to document it, we're going to be proud of it. So it wasn't really like a compromise call, but a conscious call that, I think once it comes your way, you convert those challenges into opportunities. And even today, we are doing projects across different scales. So whether it's like a large master plan or even like, I think I should just say it, maybe like a tiny 130 square feet jewelry store in Kalagora. I think what happens is that when you take these smaller projects also, it still keeps us grounded and we still focus on those smaller details, which otherwise, when you start scaling up, those things kind of get lost. So we still kind of are bouncing between different scales and typologies.
Honestly, do you all still enjoy taking smaller projects? Because see, at the end of the day, the effort is going to go as the same, right?
True. And I mean, it's that project gave me sleepless nights and I'm reconsidering doing something like that ever. But I think it was exciting when we got it. And I think that excitement, we try to sort of fake that excitement through those 2.5 months and make sure the team did not realize that we were so stressed.
So then how do you sustain when in a firm, as an owner, when the project goes on and on and on and it's not in your control? The client might start funding it or whatever the reason. How do you sustain, for example, Pritika? Because again, at the end of the day, you need that money to, survive. So then as a firm owner, that is a big stress, isn't it?
Yes.
So how do you mitigate that?
So I think we've suffered a lot in the beginning. It's only after years of experience that the deliverables and the percentage next to every deliverable has become on an Excel sheet that I really, really monitor closely every single day. And so the calls go out at the end of every quarter to the customer saying that we've gone ahead. Should I put it on pause? I think those kind of difficult conversations now I'm having once in 3 months.
But then have you ever felt frustrated enough as a firm owner and actually left the project to hell with the payment? Has that ever happened? Be honest.
Once.
Once. Okay. Jasem, boli de.
No. I think we've carried on for as long as we could, but I don't think we've left any. No.
Sorry, I like to grab the mic in that one. But no, the thing is that it's just unfortunately that we just put in so much passion and love into every project, however big or small it is, that it feels like it's going to be a heartbreak for us if we leave it halfway. So we kind of continue to, drag it along and see it to completion. I don't think we've ever left any project halfway.
Okay. So, I mean, the clock is ticking. So for the final segment, a little bit controversial, if I may. No, so you all have all told us about the pros and everything is hunky-dory and, I mean, you all struggled early on and now you all have made it to the top. Fine, we get it. What are the cons of starting your own firm? What are the risks? What are the cons of doing a partnership firm, for that matter?
I think in a partnership firm, it takes a while to realize, like he said earlier, each other's strengths and weaknesses. And, sometimes what happens is that, like in the beginning, there were projects where we were only putting our weaknesses on the table, and I think that those projects would end up suffering or whatnot. So it does take a while, and there are always those disagreements. It's like, you're dating each other, but then suddenly you start a live-in, right? And then you realize that, damn, this is not the person I want to live with. So it's slow realization, but then over a period of time, you kind of start to agree collectively that it is only for MuseLAB in this case. And I think that's when things get a lot better. So it took maybe 2 years. 2 years for us to get to that sort of mindset. At least for me. Okay. I don't know him.
So that you think was the only con as such to starting a partnership firm?
Yeah.
Anything that you would like to tell us?
At least we're a partnership firm where we're not going to bed together. So the discussions remain outside.
Yes. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
Let's keep it family oriented.
I think I wouldn't say so much a partnership firm, but I think starting your firm, there are of course cons. You don't have some of those resources which were listed out that, you do not sometimes have experience to kind of lean on. You only have your collective experience. There isn't like a senior leadership in that sense. So I think that would be a con, how I look at it. Okay. Yeah.
Pritika, what would be a con for you?
I think for me, the biggest con is the buck stops at you. So while that is really exciting, if you don't show up to work one single day, everything depends on you. So that kind of, when COVID happened, I think that was a really harsh time. Those were probably the most...
We are actually out of time, otherwise I had COVID written here.
Yeah.
But it's fine.
No, that was a very harsh time. And then you know that no matter what happens, you have to be there for everyone. Right? So while that drives you, that's also the biggest.
So is it true that if you're a firm owner, even if you're, or even for us in our case, we are always working even on holidays? Or do you all really disconnect from the world? Or from your clients, to be precise? Shilpa? Yeah. Anyone who would like to grab the mic?
So I don't disconnect, the team does. We have a 5-day work day, but my phone is
So what is your email ID again? Right, so Shilpa, now you. Yeah. Unless you tell us, see, I'm very happy, there's no cons.
See, I think we touched this briefly. What is the one lacuna which can happen, in this journey in a developer firm? It is basically with respect to, not being able to go full out in terms of design and aesthetics. You are always going to be within the box, framed box, and you have to make sure that people whom you are engaging with also remain in that box. So, there is no back and forth and you don't waste time, because that's why I think they started using architects on the developer side in the first place. It's what I feel. Right. Okay. I think also a little nuance to it is there are developers doing all kinds of work, There would be people doing commercial, there would be people doing malls, there would be some who are doing both resi, commercial, both, So I think it is, you can have a little bit of choice over there, but you would have to figure out what is the working style. That can give you a little bit of variation. There are people who are doing interiors, like I said, in-house. Some projects which speak volumes for landscape architecture. So I think now when we see in the entire interface and the industry, there is a lot of respect for product. I understand because the buyer has also become a little more nuanced and more educated, and people like to have, it's a more social environment for youngsters now. So the young buyers have more interest in what are the other offerings, what are the differentiators. So I think a lot of it gets satisfied, but yeah, that little tiny germ remains.
But at the end of the month, you go home happy.
Peacefully,
Correct.
happy.
Okay. And Mahyar, what about you? What are the cons? And we have our teams also here.
Yeah.
You all can stop recording. Mahyar is talking about a con.
I think not con per se, but at the end of the day, you have a lot of weight on your shoulders considering that you have to live up to the standards of your firm. So that's always sort of pressing you down. So every design decision, every decision that you take has that little bit of bearing on you. And I mean, not so much, but I would say also recognition. Because at the end of the day, even though clients appreciate you, but it's still the name of the firm, right? It's not your own practice. It may bother some people, it may not bother some people, but at the end of the day, the recognition is still largely the firm's and not as an individual.
That's true. Fair enough. All right, so I think that was it from my end. So I hope you all understood, if at all anybody in the audience is contemplating to do the shift, and that goes not for my team who's here, you all are staying where you all are. Other than that, whoever is going to decide whether you would want to start your own firm or perhaps jump to a developer, or even for that matter, come to our firm. I mean, we are hiring. So I hope this was helpful for all of you. And I'd like to thank my panelists for removing time and joining me here on stage. And thank you, FOAID, once again. So thank you.